A little bit of fantasy draft history here, going back into the papers. And none of you guys would be surprised if I told you the fact that Andy Dalton wasn't drafted by anyone. In fact, Teddy Bridgewater was selected in the draft. Jameis Winston was selected in the draft, but no Andy Dalton. A second player, which you wouldn't be surprised that wasn't drafted either, was Colin Kaepernick. Spoiler alert, why wasn't he drafted? Because he's fucking Colin Kaepernick, that's why. So these two players are mentioned for a reason. You see, because in this week 8, Andy decided to start Andy Dalton as his starting quarterback. That's a bit redundant. He's decided to start him as his starting quarterback. Andy started him over Drew Brees. Now, you might ask yourself, how did Drew Brees get to Andy's squad? Well, I can answer that question very easily. Andy selected Drew Brees with the 4th pick, with his 4th selection in the draft. There's a certain bracket that you put a player in when you choose him that high. So we set the economics to these players depending on when we pick them. When somebody is picked, I'd say your top 5. I'd say when you've got your top 5, they have to be made up of people that you start no matter what. Unless, of course, the player is injured. Unless, of course, the player is just tanking so bad. And, oh, by the way, when you pick quarterbacks that high, they've got one thing going for them more than any other position. They've got their name. You don't pick Teddy Bridgewater in the 5th round, in the 4th. You pick somebody who's been proven to be a fantasy juggernaut. So Andy's got Drew Brees on his bench. Now, he's not the Drew Brees of old. He's not the Drew Brees from 2 or 3 years ago that had that amazing chemistry with Jimmy Graham. But he's Drew Brees. And he managed to score a total of 44 points on Andy's bench. Now, how much did Andy Dalton score, you'd like to know? Andy Dalton managed to score a mere 9 points. Now, Andy got the victory. Don't get me wrong. He defeated Paul by a final score of 94-46. Wouldn't have mattered anyway. Andy would have won. Paul just didn't show up. But here's the reason why I brought up Colin Kaepernick. If you go back to week 4 in the fantasy, okay, just a second. Go back to week 4 and check the papers. You notice that Andy lost to the commish by a final score of 63-69. Now, in that week, Andy decided to start Colin Kaepernick, who again wasn't even drafted, and he's Colin Kaepernick. Nestled safely in Andy's bench was Drew Brees, who managed to score 22 points. Now, you might say that I'm nitpicking by saying this, by pointing this out. And fantasy is half chance, and we leave points on the bench all the time. Indeed, we do. We all leave points on the bench every time, but we shouldn't leave points on the bench when it comes to our quarterbacks who are top tier. Drew Brees isn't of the Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, or Luck tier. He's a part of the Ben Roethlisberger, the Tony Romo, the Drew Brees. He's a part of that tier. But you shouldn't have to make these unnecessary switches with your quarterback. Last week, Aaron Rodgers was on my bye. He was on a bye. I selected Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill got 24 points. You want to know what I did with Ryan Tannehill this week? I put him in the fucking player pool. I don't even know how many points he scored. I have no clue what Ryan Tannehill did because it's of no concern to me. It's of no concern to me. I've told you guys that keeping two quarterbacks is worthless. Even worse when you've got somebody like Drew Brees. Now, if you take these two blunders of Andy, even though he won this week, if you take these two blunders, Andy has missed out on a total of 48 points by benching Drew Brees and a victory. Okay? So Andy's record right now would have been 4-4 had he just put in Drew Brees against the commish a couple weeks ago. And I say that with the utmost certainty because if you pick him in the 4th round, he's not supposed to move from your starting lineup. He's not supposed to move. When you're trying to get victories every week, when you're trying to be cute, this is the stuff that happens. And though he was very fortunate that he got the victory and that Paul didn't show up, he didn't really win. Paul just didn't fucking do anything. Paul, he's back to normalcy, at least for this week. And now that I said that, Paul's going to score 150 points next week. That's neither here nor there. When you try to get cute, these are the kind of things that can keep you out of the playoffs. Now, I say that because last year, the Ultimate Warrior division was made up of Andy, myself, the commish, Reef, and Pedro. It was a very tight division. Andy ended up winning the division with 1,181 points. I was second with 1,155 points. The commish was third with 1,133 points. Reef was 1,093. And Pedro rang up the rear, as Eric always seems to, with 1,041. Now, the difference of point totals here was Pedro trailed Reef by 52. Reef trailed Orlando by 40. Orlando trailed me by 22. And I trailed Andy by 26 points. Now, as I said, Andy's missed out on 48 points by benching Drew Brees. Will Andy continue to do this? Probably. Because by winning, it reinforces the idea that, hey, I can keep doing this. I'm good. Totally ignoring that your opponent just didn't even fucking show up that week. So it wouldn't have mattered who you put in. But point totals matter. You see, I joked last week when I said that J. Ray sent me those texts and, you know, and he was like, well, at least I got my points, you know, blah, blah, blah. Points are just as important as victories when we're in the middle of the season. Now, towards the end, you got to start getting those victories. You know? But points are just as important because this is what depends on keeping you in the playoff race or not. Look at how tightly knit the division was last year between us. Do you think the division's not going to be tight this year? Do you think you're not going to need every fucking single point? I mean, right now, as it stands, in Andy's division, the commission's got the most with 783. Then you got Pedro with 759. J. Ray with 686. Joe with 635. And Andy with 655. The distance between Andy and J. Ray, for example, is just 60 points. It's just 60 points. By the end of the season, I guarantee you that Andy will miss out on a lot more, and I will monitor that amount. Pedro also employs the same idea. See, but there's a difference here. Though I still think it's idiotic, on Pedro's level, it's a little different, okay? As I said with Andy, it's stupid because you have a quarterback who's been proven to put up these kind of points, and you picked them in the 4th round. With Pedro, it's a bit different. Or with anybody else who has these two classes of quarterback, it's a little bit different. because they're pretty much in the same pool. And Andy Dalton and Drew Brees, of course, are not in the same pool. Andy Dalton would be in like the third tier with Eli Manning. Okay? But the strange thing about Pedro is that Pedro has Ben Roethlisberger, who Eric once had on his bench before he got hurt, and Ben Roethlisberger did him the favor of getting hurt. So now Pedro's going to be the fucking, the alpha, the brainiac, to fucking pick up Ben Roethlisberger and to conflict his team even more than it has to be. If you want to switch out Eli Manning for Ben Roethlisberger, that's probably the smartest thing to do. It's probably the smartest thing to do. Very different if you're in Eric's position, having Peyton Manning, and then having Ben Roethlisberger on the bench. And it's stupid for this reason, if you're Pedro. Because as a fantasy owner, the last thing that you need to worry about is where your quarterback points are coming from. Quarterbacks they fluctuate. The points fluctuate. They're up, they're down. You've just got to go with one. You just have to have some fucking balls and go with one. My point is, my overall point, if I happen to be all over the place and I happen to be fucking losing you because you don't fucking get what I'm saying, my point is that you shouldn't have to manage quarterbacks. Quarterbacks are not to be managed. They are the one position in your fantasy team that should be just locked in. Of course, depending on, when buys come along. That's it. That's your quarterback. He's supposed to be your guy. Think of it in terms of how a team is run, period. A quarterback is supposed to be the leader, okay? Supposed to be. And I'm guessing in most NFL teams, the quarterback is the leader just because he has the fucking ball. The offense runs through him, okay? So when you have a fantasy team, you have to look at it in terms of that. Look at it metaphorically in that way. The quarterback is supposed to be the one that you do not question. He gets it. He gets the philosophy of the team. He knows where we're going, and he's going to man this fucking offense to victory. A quarterback shouldn't have to be thought about. I have Aaron fucking Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers did nothing for me this week against Pedro. I believe he scored 6 points. But guess what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to swap him out for Andy Dalton. I'm not going to do that because I selected him with my number one pick. I would be the biggest idiot in the league to do that. There's so many other selections that you could have made. And by putting somebody like Drew Brees on the bench, you're putting those selections ahead of Drew Brees when you didn't put them ahead of Drew Brees because you picked him in the 4th round. There's the economics that I'm talking to you guys about. Now, I'm not saying if a player underperforms, you fucking trade him, Or if a player performs over his, I picked Joseph Randle in the 3rd round. I sold high on Joseph Randle, okay? I dished him out and got Jimmy Graham in return. You either sell somebody high, you trade somebody if they're performing low, or they just fucking get injured. That's what you've got to do with people who you select that high. That's the only way to get a return on your investment. It's the only fucking way. The worst thing that you want to do is keep them on the bench. Trade Drew Brees. Listen to me. You've already missed out on one victory. And you're missing out on 50 fucking points. Now, if you have running backs, say for example, if you're Pedro, since I've got his team up here, and this week you choose to start Jeremy Hill, and and TJ Yeldon for the Jacksonville Jaguars on your bench goes absolutely fucking nuts for like 23 points. And in your mind that morning, you said it's either going to be Jeremy Hill or TJ Yeldon. You see that's the inner dialogue. And, though nobody knows who you swapped who out for, you know who you made the decision to go with between the other person. So in your mind, you kind of have to compare those 2 points to one another. But it's different with running backs. You're managing 3 positions here. You're managing 3 positions. It's a lot different. You're always going to leave points on the bench when it comes to running backs. More than likely, because most of them are people who you selected in like the 9th or 8th round. It's you're supposed to swap them out and find out what works for you, what works for your benefit. But not when you pick them in the 4th, man. What are you, fucking stupid? What is this? Your first year of fantasy where we all let Pedro take advantage of us and win a fucking championship? There's always going to be an asterisk on that championship draw. There always will be. What is this? A quarterback should not be managed. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but check the papers. Check the point totals. I'm not playing Monday morning quarterback. This is something I've told you guys for fucking years. The commission knows this. I've told the commission 1,000 times. It's stupid. The quarterback position should not be worried about. We don't worry about kickers. We don't worry about them. We just sort of treat kickers like they just so happen to be part of the team. But kickers and quarterbacks are the complete opposite of one another, but you treat them the same. You keep the kicker in there no matter what the fuck the matchup is. Because he can score 12, he can fucking score 9, he's a fucking kicker. But your quarterback, it's not quarterback. But your quarterback is just supposed to be the guy that gets you 17, 18 points, 30 points, 12 points, 17 points, 18 points, 24 points, 30 points, 44 fucking points. That's your quarterback. And you go with him. You know what I'm saying? You understand that this is all half chance and all you can do is just go with the name that you go with. Do you understand me, Andy? You understand what the fuck I'm saying? Yeah, you probably don't fucking listen to this, but you probably should. I'll get a drink of water. Andy's going to get me all worked up. So I got my ass whooped this week, okay? I got my ass handed to me. And there's really nothing else left to be said, you know. I got 6 points from Aaron Rodgers. I got nothing from James Jones. I got a good performance out of Chakandrick West, and I got a pretty good performance out of DeAndre Hopkins, who's on a bye this week. Lucky me. So I got no support from 2 of my wide receivers because Mike Evans just decided not to show up with 3 catches, 48 yards, and 4 points. And Matt Forte was injured at some point of the game, so he got 6. Eli Manning just basically took over. He just said, listen, here's your ass, and I'm going to hand it over to you. Would you like it? Thank you, Eli Manning. I would like my ass. Fucking Pedro. That was disrespectful. But, I guess you can't win them all. It's been, I haven't lost in over a month. So, I'm still at the top of the division with 809 points because points matter. I'm 5-3. Hensel's also 5-3. Ed's 5-3 as well. And the commission's 5-3 in his division. So everything's very still close. And that reinforces my point even more as to why points fucking matter. Pedro's 4-4. J Ray's 4-4. But Pedro's got 759 points and J Ray has 686. So guess who would make it to the playoffs and guess who wouldn't? So I lost, as I said. It happens. Hensel is in a custody battle. I don't want to give out Hensel's information because none of this is personal. This is all fantasy stuff. But Hensel's in a custody battle, guys, and it hurts my heart to see him do this. You don't like to see a friend suffer like this, and he's going through a lot of legal matters. He's showing up with his 3-piece suit every week. He's looking like he's interested. He's looking like he wants it, I guess, on the surface level. But then you take a look at his team this week, and he gives Orlando a victory. I got my ass handed to me, and Orlando got handed a victory. You see how that works? Carlos fucking Hyde was injured before the games even started. All right? Well before the games were started. This wasn't an Andrew Luck, Joe situation from a few weeks back. He was injured, and he didn't play. So he got a big fat donut, and Hensel ended up losing by 11 points, okay? 107-96. He didn't have any running backs on his bench, and I'm not saying if you would have thrown anyone in there, they would have gotten it, because, I mean, getting somebody from the player pool, a running back from the player pool to get 11 points, you know, it's not highly unlikely, but they got to have a pretty good game. So he's showing up every week, and he's looking like he wants his team in this custody battle. But everything's it's not looking good. I mean, give Hensel credit that for the most part he's been consistent, and he's been updating his team. And I hope that this is just a hiccup, because every fucking time that I see some of you assholes in Thanksgiving, for example, if we play a game, you say, why is Hensel in the league? Why is Hensel in the league? And I just sort of look at you like, but why has Hensel in the league? That's how the conversation goes. I go, and you go, why is Hensel in the league? When Hensel does things like this, it sort of, takes you back to those cringe-worthy weeks where, it just, you fucking feel like Kanye West and Hensel's fucking George Bush. It's just like, George Bush doesn't care about black people. Hensel doesn't care about his fantasy team. We won't go as far as to say that he doesn't care about his fantasy team. We'll just, just say he didn't take a look. He didn't take a look. So he paid the price, and he gave the commission victory. Now, just like Andy and his fucking point blunder, shit like this comes back. The commission could have quite possibly been 4-4. But now he's 5-3. I guess that's how it works. I guess I can only hope that that somebody could hook me up with a victory like that. That'd be nice, right? That'd be really nice if any of you are considering to do that. Now I'm going to move on to my picks, and I'm going to get the fuck out of here. All right. Week 8, I was 3-1. I had a very good week. A jolly good old week. And for the year, this puts me at 9-13. This week, give me the commish over Dro. Give me Jay over Andy, even though I said Andy would make the playoffs. Give me Hensel over Paul, because as I said, Paul is right back to normalcy. And give me Ed over Eric. So those are my picks for week 9. And of course, I'm going up against Joe, and I expect to win. I've got to make a lot of adjustments because I've got quite a few bye weeks, but I'll make a prediction. If I lose this week, which I don't think I will, I think I'm going to go on a fucking route after that, because everything is just clear ahead after that. I've got so many buys out of the way. Not sure if you guys have had as many buys as I have, but still managed to getting these fucking W's. You know what I'm saying? Getting these fucking W's. So I will defeat Joe, I'm pretty sure, because Joe's team is just that fucking weak. And I wouldn't say that up against just everybody. Say, for example, if I was facing Ed's team, which is pretty decent, I would be like, well, maybe I could lose. It's just down the line is when Ed is going to face a lot of problems, because he's going to have a battle with himself and his poor fantasy decisions. So this was your Week 8 recap. Let's not forget that points matter. And we can prove it just by looking back at the papers. Don't bench your quarterbacks. Keep one quarterback. Choose. Just decide. Don't be fucking women about this. Don't try to keep all your fucking options open. Because when it comes to options and quarterbacks, in the end, it will end up biting you in the fucking ass. Go fuck yourselves.